Good evening. This is Brian Thomas Simons, and these are the main headlines of this hour. Among other news,
1. New 266 executive decisions were released in the Oval Office during the weekend. Among them, A. SpaceX will be absorbed by NASA according to the Insurrection Act of 1807, and all its assets will be invested in the dollar Trump meme coin. Elon Musk will be compensated with a new emission of $Melania meme coins. B. Eric Jones, formerly known as Eric Trump before a former executive decision renamed him Eric Jones to not embarrass his father, President Trump, will be counted as one of Elon Musk's many children, who from now on will be legally considered his biological father. C. Melania Trump will be considered Elon Musk's wife as soon as she turns 56 for all legal effects. But her income for the $Melania meme coin will legally belong to President Trump's patrimony. Any dispute resulting from this executive decision will be decided by a 3-member panel elected by President Trump. 2. You essentially destroyed any chance I have. I hate you. I hate you. You have hurt my feelings. Protested DNC Chair Ken Martin, visibly emotional against Vice Chair David Hogg. You essentially destroyed any chance I have. I hate you. I hate you. You have hurt my feelings. Protested DNC Chair Ken Martin, visibly emotional against Vice Chair David Hogg in a May 15 Zoom meeting of DNC officers. In that same meeting, Chair Martin reproached Hogg, "I'll be very honest with you. For the first time in my 100 days on this job, the other night I said to myself for the first time, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. All I want is to go home and be with my mom. Mom, take me out of here. Mom, take me out of here. I don't want to be chair anymore." The disagreement between the two leaders had been brewing for some time. It was known that Chair Martin was for running deconstructed candidates who were serious about taking Rachel Zegler's Snow White to the first spot on Disney Plus and David Hogg for candidates who were provenly young and cool, a difference that has become irreconcilable. 3. Greta Thunberg's crew surrenders after IDF closes last remaining Starbucks in Gaza. Greta Thunberg's crew, which had been leading a flotilla of ships bringing symbolic aid to Gazans, hopelessly surrendered to the IDF after it was informed that Netanyahu's government had closed the last remaining Starbucks in Gaza, which operated inside the Nasser medical complex. The crew, some of them in tears, reacted with anger to the news that they would not get to order the lattes of their preference after a trip some of them described as unbearable oppression. On the other hand, the IDF confiscated the symbolic aid consisting of pride flags donated by European LGBTQ+ groups and books written by Thunberg. It's not that they were at least bringing food or medical supplies. They were bringing all that woke trash, but who doesn't want to take a selfie with Greta Thunberg, declared a representative of the Gaza Health Ministry. 4. Press Secretary Leavitt confirms Trump's theory ridiculed by Rolling Stone about Biden. Press Secretary Leavitt confirmed Trump's theory that Biden was executed and replaced by a robot clone. New scientists recruited by HHS Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. have made a compelling opinion that, as incredible as they seem, President Trump's theory is right. President Biden was executed by Nancy Pelosi and replaced by a clone robot because of her fear that Biden's feeble mind might lead Democrats to lose the 2024 elections. And just in case you ask, these scientists don't have peer-reviewed papers because they don't need them. They have a vast following on their Facebook pages. Also, we have already passed the file to Attorney General Pam Bondi, who has shown deep interest in investigating this case, concluded the press secretary. 5. Fox News host Jesse Waters has unusual courtesy with Newsmax host who alleged Trump and Elon were in cahoots to sink budget bill. Makes sense, says Waters. Fox News host Jesse Waters said in his show that Newsmax's theory that Trump and Musk were secretly in cahoots to sink Trump's big beautiful bill, his tax cuts and budget bill, makes sense. If you consider that the plan is to then blame it all on Eric, it makes sense, concluded Waters. Newsmax Carl Higbee today elaborated more about his theory. Elon has to do it right for the president after all the noise he raised last week in X, or our beloved President Trump will send the IRS to audit him. And now that he has dumped Eric into Musk's family, Elon better do it right this time, concluded Higbee. 6. Secretary Leavitt condemns The Independent for its story, Trump conducts weirdest exit interview in history as Musk departs the White House. Adamant, Secretary Leavitt condemned an article that appeared on The Independent in which President Trump is ridiculed for his assessments in an event that marked the exit of billionaire Elon Musk from government. Therefore, Secretary Leavitt declared that a. The mention of transgender mice was completely justified since, confirming Alex Jones's theories, the NIH had been experimenting with mice to produce a virus that would turn male Americans into transsexuals. Male Americans should be profoundly grateful to our president for having saved their virility, concluded the press secretary. B. Musk's alleged prolific use of horse tranquilizer has been validated by the new scientists hired by Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr. It's good for our health and President Trump is going to propose including it in Medicare D, clarified Leavitt. C. The president is correct. A nuclear war between India and Pakistan is not one of American foreign policy priorities, but if they run out of nukes, we could sell them some of ours. In fact, that provision has been included in the Big Beautiful Bill, confirmed Secretary Leavitt. D. A potential pardon for Sean Diddy Combs, should he be convicted, is actually under consideration. The pardon would be conditioned on Mr. Combs purchasing an amount of Trump meme coins that will depend on the terms of the sentence. The harsher the sentence, the higher the amount. It's only fair, concluded the press secretary. Finally, with respect to the former Doge leader at one point rolling his head around to stare at the ceiling as the president spoke, Leavitt justified the moment by saying that it was related to his 5-year-old son who had given him a black eye. It just happened that he heard his son talking to him from the ceiling, and Musk, being the good father he is, turned to hear what his son was trying to communicate to him, concluded Leavitt. 7. President Trump arrests South African president for white genocide during his visit to the White House. President Trump used the visit of South African President Ramaphosa to arrest him for what he denominated as cases of white genocide in South Africa. Secretary Leavitt declared to the press that President Ramaphosa was under arrest and that, according to the Insurrection Act of 1807, President Trump will not deport him or order Attorney General Pam Bondi to open a file on Ramaphosa but will sell him as a slave. The 14th Amendment wasn't passed until June 13, 1866, and the Insurrection Act is of 1807. So it's perfectly within the president's powers to sell him as a slave, concluded the press secretary. 8. Cryptic meme uploaded by President Trump to Truth Social explained. Last Wednesday, President Trump shared a meme of himself walking down a dark city street with all-cap text that read, "He's on a mission from God and nothing can stop what is coming." The post had no visible context to explain it, yet, today it was revealed that it was a continuation of the campaign, Time to Return to God, promoted by the Conservative United Conference of Catholic Bishops to celebrate the election of an American Pope, Pope Leo XIV. The core of the campaign is to adapt the teachings of Leo XIV to the faith of real Americans. Thus, when the new pope says that you should love the foreigner, the orphan, and the widow, what he really means is that you must send them to Socorro in El Salvador. And when he speaks about Jesus's love for the poor, what he really means is that the rich need another tax cut. It's just a way to show that, if Jesus had voted in 2024, he would have voted for President Trump, added a conference spokesman. 9. Trump blames Biden's immigration policy for Boulder attack and other American woes. Trump condemned the horrific Boulder attack on former President Biden's immigration policies. As part of his charges, he said the attack will not be tolerated, and claimed the suspect in the attack came in through Biden's ridiculous open border policy. He also blamed immigrants for the Slovenian supplier of Melania as a male bride for not honoring the clause about replacements. She's 55, and I have had to pass her to Elon as punishment just because the supplier is not honoring the return and replacement clause. You can't trust immigrants, and that's the end of it, concluded the president. Immigrants are to blame for the pandemic of obesity plaguing America. I am already at 243 pounds because of these illegals, because all of them are illegals and criminals. I don't know how Stevie Miller does to keep looking like Hannibal Lecter when he was played by Anthony Hopkins, added President Trump. Finally, the president blamed immigrants for not being more collaborative with ICE. I am trying to please my MAGA base, to show them long lines of migrants frog marched back to their shithole countries. And they don't even have the courtesy of crying for the photographs. MAGA people love them when they cry. Why can't all immigrants be like white South Africans? 10. President Trump reproaches MERS for Nazis during the Second World War. President Ramaphosa sold into slavery by Trump. President Trump had to be restrained when, during a meeting with his German counterpart, Chancellor Friedrich Merz, he reproached MERS for the Nazi barbarity during the Second World War. After interjecting his German counterpart, President Trump added, "That was not a pleasant day for you, right, you Nazi scum?" and tried to arrest Chancellor Merz for war crimes. With Trump restrained by Treasury Secretary Bessent and other members of Bessent's entourage and with Susie Wiles crying disconsolately in the background, the meeting had to be cancelled, and Chancellor Merz had to be escorted out of the White House premises while Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, clearly intoxicated, followed Merz with insults and provocations in Merz's way out. When the session resumed, half an hour later, it did so in a more positive tone, as President Trump announced that South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who had been arrested for genocide against the white minority in that country, had been satisfactorily sold for $10,000, auction that took place in Fort Bragg after the president addressed the troops. Little by little, we will balance the budget, concluded the president. Finally, President Trump expressed his disappointment with Elon Musk. "Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we will anymore. All of a sudden, he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out we're going to cut the EV mandate. And he has accepted Melania and Eric as atonement, but I don't know if that will be enough for me to forgive him." 11. Argentinian jurist Roberto Gargarella. Kirchner's sentence unlikely to trigger judicial revenge on Milei since Milei only commits misdemeanors. He doesn't know how to steal. Asked about the consequences for President Milei of the Supreme Court confirming former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner's sentence for the Vialidad corruption case, which involved scandals in 51 public works, Argentine jurist Roberto Gargarella dismissed the speculations about a revenge movement that would try to put the current president in prison. In his own words, jurist Gargarella declared that Kirchner's sentence is unlikely to trigger judicial revenge on Milei because so far, Javier Milei only commits misdemeanors, pocket change infractions that would be punished by community service only. He doesn't know how to steal. What Argentinian president would charge $500 for each of the 2 tweets related to dollar Libra that caused other negative consequences, for instance, the IMF refusing to close the 23 refinance of Argentina's long-term debt as a president who doesn't know how to steal is not reliable. But there is nothing on the criminal side. Have you seen him begging for the attention of Elon Musk and Sylvester Stallone with wet eyes? What adult does that? Milei's misdemeanors are still being investigated by the Peronists, as reported 3 weeks ago by Notier.com.ar. 12. Florida man named Cocaine accused of assaulting subway employees for disrespecting his deeply held religious beliefs. Edward Cocaine, 45, from Brevard County, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault, burglary with assault or battery, and battery after assaulting with a knife 2 subway employees for their bad attitudes. According to Wayne Ivey, Brevard County Sheriff, Cocaine claimed the subway employees had disrespected his deeply held religious beliefs, which dictated that the sandwiches he had ordered were free of charge. Aware of the Patriot defense, the sheriff asked Cocaine whether he was affiliated or intended to join the Republican Party, and when the answer came positive, he decided to let Cocaine go free. If the district attorney wanna present charges, it's up to him, but we have learned how that Patriot defense works, and next thing you know, Cocaine walks out with a $100,000 compensation. I'm not falling for that, concluded the sheriff before confirming that Mr. Cocaine was not intoxicated at the moment of the incident and renewing his threat of using lethal force against people who intended to demonstrate against President Trump on June 14.
This has been the news of this hour. Sponsored by Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit. Have you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior? Did you vote for Trump in 2016 and then in 2020? This is the right church for you. If so, Church of the Holy Redeemer's Power in the Spirit is the only Christian church that can promise you in the Lord to have 72 virgins in heaven for only a donation of $50 a month. You will have access to those 72 virgins in heaven. For an additional $25, you will be allowed to replace 10 of them, and for $100, Heaven Premium, you will be allowed to choose them for yourself. Guaranteed, if you're not satisfied with those 72 virgins after you die, full refund of your money. We accept Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover.